Hey, everybody, and welcome to Cancer in the Room, the podcast. Now, the goal of our podcast is to highlight the inspiring stories of athletes, sports executives, and media personalities who have faced and beaten cancer. In the sports world, the term cancer in the room is often applied to a person whose behavior is disruptive and negative toward their teammates or organization. Now, in our particular case, all of us on this podcast have cancer or continue to battle cancer each and every day. Now, our spin is this. The battle is real. It's hard, but we all have a ton of life to live, and we all wish to, try to blow through all of this and enjoy it as much as we possibly can. So that's the cancer in the room, and we're striving to push forward in a positive manner, and that's what this is all about. And we also love talking about sports. And my name is Bryn Griffiths, and he is Dave Jameson.
Our guest on Cancer in the Room today has hockey running through his veins, through his 4 decades of being involved with the sport. Sit back, because here's the long list of accomplishments in his career.
All right.
As a player, he won 3 CIAU national titles with the U of A Golden Bears under legendary coach Claire Drake. He won gold at the World University Games. And as an equipment manager, 5 Stanley Cups, 3 Canada Cups, 1 World Hockey Championship, 2 Canadian gold medal winning teams at the Olympics in Salt Lake City and Turin, 1 gold and 1 silver at the World Cup of Hockey.
And a partridge in a pear tree.
Today, please welcome to Cancer in the Room, Barrie Stafford.
You guys look very professional there, I must say.
All right, Barrie, we like to begin our conversations at this spot. What kind of cancer did you have? And if it's in past tense, or are you still fighting this? What was your reaction when you first got the news that you'd been diagnosed with cancer?
Well, I have multiple myeloma. It's a blood-borne bone disease, and I was diagnosed in 2011. So I got a long story here, but it's a critical illness. There is no cure. I was very fortunate to go through the first level of treatment, which is fairly common, called the stem cell transplant, and after quite a few months of chemotherapy and then a big hit of chemo, but I was in remission for 11 years. So I'm a bit of an anomaly in a lot of ways, as Bryn can tell you. I'm a long ways from normal, and but very fortunate. And I'll get into that a little bit later. I did come out of remission just recently, and I'm thankfully I'm back on a trial. But so that's the deal with. I'm living chronically with cancer, which is a goal of all the great cancer hospitals across the world, to get patients to be living like that. And so I'm doing quite well, actually. To answer your question about, how did I deal with it? That's the question that nobody ever wants, or the statement that nobody ever wants to hear from your doctor. I'm sorry, sir, you have cancer. But my case was a bit different in that I'd been struggling for months and months before I was finally diagnosed. And, I'm lucky being in the sports world and the hockey business to have all our good doctors on our side. And Dr. Boyko was looking after me. And he finally, to the point of, with Ken Lowe, my colleague and close friend, training partner, just said, Barrie, you got to get to the hospital. So I was in an awful lot of pain, and I was struggling. I'd had a lot of tests before, but the initial time when the doctor said to me, Mr. Stafford, sir, I have some bad news for you. There's a really high percentage chance you have bone cancer. Well, I didn't even pay attention to him because I was struggling so much. I said, look, buddy, I just need you to help me out here. I'm struggling. And I'm an optimistic guy. Even though I was stressed, I said, well, that means there must be a percentage chance that I don't have it. I was a bit pissed off at the guy, really. And unfortunately, I was admitted to the hospital that day. It was the 15th of July on 2011. And it wasn't until 5 days later that I actually got the diagnosis.
It just seems like everybody knows the exact day when they heard that they had cancer. Did you know the exact time? Did they give you that?
No, it was early in the morning. I know it was about 8:30 in the morning, 7:30 in the morning when I went to emergency, but I don't know exactly. I was there for about an hour.
Hey, but as long as I've known you, you've always been one of the most positive, optimistic people that I know. So how long did it take you? And it doesn't sound like it was very long. How long did it take you to go from getting the diagnosis from the doctor? So how long was that reaction time for you?
Well, let me say that in the week that before I was diagnosed, I mean, the doctors didn't really know. And my wife was with me every day in the hospital, and I was struggling. I was in rough shape. I mean, I had a fracture. My clavicle came off my sternum. I had a compression fracture in T4. I had pneumonia twice. I was struggling with, my kidneys were failing, and my bowel was spasming, which, I mean, I was really struggling a lot, and it took them a while. It took about 3 days for them to sort all this stuff out. And every day the doctors would come in, and I would say, well, what the hell's going on here? What's wrong? They couldn't tell me. And so I was kind of fearing the worst, I came eyeball to eyeball with my mortality, literally. I mean, and one turning point leading up to the diagnosis, which was probably the most emotional time, was my wife said to me, what am I going to do if you don't get out of here? That was pretty tough. So I didn't know.
Yeah.
I had no idea. And it wasn't until Friday. I mean, that's a bit of a sad story for me. I haven't talked about this. I haven't really shared a lot of this with the public, but it was on Friday that the doctor came in, Dr. Irmadeep Sandhu, who's a very good friend, and to this day, and he said to me, I think I can help you. And I said, well, you mean I'm not going to die? I think I can. That's all he told me. I think I can help you. And from then on, to your question, Bryn, she kicked into high gear, man. I'm a sports guy like you guys. I've lived in high pressure situations in sports my whole life, and I just kicked her into gear. I said, "Good, let's get to work."
Barrie, you've led me nicely to my next question, which was there a mantra that you had or referred to when you were working in the NHL or in hockey that you drew on as an inspiration to kind of help you get your mind straight and ready to go as you went up against cancer?
Well, the only thing I know is, and I was very fortunate to be in that environment, is high stakes. I mean, the Stanley Cup, this is what comes to my mind. And I've mentored a ton of people since that day, and I still do to this day. And I just use the analogy about, the Stanley Cup's it might seem corny, but it's the world we live in. So Stanley Cup is the hardest trophy to win. I mean, you need to win 16 games, and you need to win them one game at a time. And you got to, we live in a world of cliches. We all do. You guys do, and the media and the athletes and everybody. And cliches are there for a reason.
The name of our podcast, Cancer
in the
Room.
It couldn't be more appropriate, really. But so these cliches are, they're there for a reason. I mean, put your nose down and get to work. That's all I know, and that's all I knew. And so, one game at a time, one day at a time. I mean, it might have been 1 hour at a time for a while there. It was pretty tough in the early stages, but that's the way I looked at it. And I've been around so many character people, and I mean, I've been in so many high stakes situations with professional life, and it's because I'm an optimistic person, and I was very fortunate to be in that environment. I never looked back. I mean, face it, knock on wood, I'm a lucky bastard. There's no way around it. And but I just went to work, and I did the best I could. I worked hard at it as much as I could, whatever was in my control.
Okay, I need to ask about your support unit because you talk about your family, but I also want to talk about the people that stepped up to say hi, the people who were backing you. We're often surprised by how some people find you and how they get a message out to you, really close friends. Was there anything that surprised you with the people who reached out?
Well, I once again, I spent lots of time at the Cross Hospital and lots of time in the chemo ward, and here, thanks. And I know that there are people struggling without family support, and it's heartbreaking. But for me, I was so fortunate because my wife was with me every single day. I have family in Edmonton. My sister Kathy's a nurse in Vancouver. She took 2 weeks off of work. As far as the family support, my mom was here with us here and there, as hard as it was on her. But so family support was amazing. The one thing that I will say, Brennan, I'm sure you guys have both noticed this, is that the support from our community, and the hockey business and the sports business is an amazing business, and it's all about the people and the quality of the people and the character of the people. And I tell you, I was overwhelmed with emotion when the diagnosis was, I didn't really want to make it public or whatever, but I mean, if it comes out, what are you going to do? So I had so many phone calls. I couldn't keep up. It was overwhelming, I was in rough shape, and it really gave me hope, and it gave me encouragement. Hal Hamilton, through my years of the alumni, he's a cancer survivor, and he's the godfather to our group. And, he poked his head in there one day out of the blue. I had, of course, our friends, and I finished with the team as far as the training department, but I had lots of, former friends and players that lived around, and staff from our office. But Billy Moores, my coach, and when I played for the Golden Bears, he popped his head in there a few times here and there. The surprising people that you get calls from. I remember, of course, Kevin was kicking around a lot, and Kenny Lowe and Sparky, of course, my closest colleagues and friends. But I got a call from Kevin Lowe one day, and he said, "Hey, I'd like you to." I hadn't even been driving; it was in my recovery phase, so this was a little bit after the diagnosis, but a couple months after. He said, "Yeah, I got a friend that wants to see you. Are you able to drive? Can you come down to the arena? He's doing some work with us." And yeah, I said, "Yeah, who is it?" He goes, Mess wants to see you. And
now we got to tell people that's Mark Messier, because not everybody's a hockey fan watching this.
Sure.
So
we're
talking about a legendary captain of this hockey club in Edmonton.
Yes, sorry. Yeah, I think so. I had tons of support from the former players. I've been around for so long. It's like you have so many friends in the business, and it was overwhelming, the support that I got. And to this day, it's pretty emotional, really.
Barrie, what did having cancer, going through the treatments, reveal to you about you? Things that you weren't aware, strength that you didn't know you had. What did you learn about yourself through this?
Oh boy. It's amazing how strong you can be when strength is your only option. Like I know that sounds like a cliche, and somebody gave me that saying one day, and I'm once again, I'm a lucky guy, and my treatment with a stem cell transplant, I don't even get the details of it, but I was only in the hospital for a month. And I would say of that month, I probably had three pretty uncomfortable weeks with chemotherapy. As an example, I came in as an outpatient one morning because I had to go back and forth. I was allowed to go back and forth, but I stayed in the hospital most of the time. But the doctor said, "I don't know what the hell's Dr. Steve Follett, a good friend. I was dragging my ass. I was really having a hard time." And he says, "What? I wonder why you're feeling so upset." He said, "I gave you enough chemo to kill a horse. What the hell do you expect?" So he kind of gave me a little bit of help there. But Dave, I think I was lucky because the times that were really, really tough, physically tough, they were short, and I kind of got through it, and through support. And the hospital is so good. As you guys know, the nursing staff and the doctors and all the people that work in the hospital are there to help you. And so my whole attitude right from the beginning was let's get this done. Get your nose down, whatever it's going to take. You just got to get her done. So get through it. And I took it, sometimes it was 1 minute by minute. It was hour by hour, and then day by day, until I got the hell out of there and got back to rocking and rolling.
Now, we've all lost people to cancer, but I think we've taken some strength from the people we've lost. And we all get great advice. There's no denying that. A good friend of ours, Brian Roscoe, who was the video coach with the Edmonton Oilers back in the 90s, and even before that, he was a practice goaltender as well. We lost him to prostate cancer. But I remember having this conversation with him, and I certainly have changed my view on how I look at cancer. He gave me some helpful advice in his last few days, and he basically taught me to open my vision up a little bit. And you know what? He told me to focus on the positive things, the things that maybe I should be taking a closer look at. This is told to me by a person who's no longer with us. I was able to use that to sustain me moving forward. Now, you must have heard a few things or had a few things happen to you as well where you went, man, if I could use that to push myself even further to beat this thing down, I'm going to do it. Is there anything like that? Any way of kind of explaining how you've been able to dedicate yourself to maybe working with the Cure Cancer Foundation in the Edmonton area?
Yeah, I mean, once again, Sylvia Twilley, Bill, you guys know Bill, Dave and Bryn, we all worked with Bill for a lot of years, and Sylvia, his lovely wife, passed away from cancer after a long battle, and Bill was very close to us in the team. And when I was diagnosed, he pulled me aside and he said, Barrie, I'm going to give you a little bit of advice here. Just number one, we have one of the best facilities in the world, and definitely in Western Canada, or even Canada, for cancer. You have to trust your doctors. I mean, at that time, it's only 11 years ago, but there was so much stuff on the internet, and people are distraught. I mean, it's a stressful, scary time, as you guys know, and you're always looking for answers. And, the one thing he said, just trust in your doctors. These guys know what they're doing. We have a great hospital here, especially for me in myeloma and blood cancer. It's world renowned. It really is. And Dr. Michael Chu is world renowned on the work that he's doing right now, and some of the trials that he's running for CAR T-cell therapy, which is for blood cancer, leukemia, lymphoma, myeloma. So I didn't go on the internet. I was afraid to go down that road. I mean, everybody has to be their own advocate and do their own work. But so I'm not discounting that. But I stayed away from that, and I kind of trusted in the doctors, and I took it to heart what they were talking to me about, and all the other things. People that had been sick before, and they gave you hope. They gave me encouragement. I have tons of funny stories to tell. We don't have a lot of time for all that, but that's kind of what I try and do today with the lessons that I learned through it all, is just trying to give people hope and understand that it doesn't have to be a death sentence. There's no guarantees in this cancer world. And I have a 3 or 4 steps that I've come through with, that I help mentor people with, that I've kind of learned through the process. But there's lots of learning, isn't there? There's lots of lessons we all learn.
Hey, the other thing I wanted to talk about is the fact that you've come out of this in a far different manner, a different perspective. You're seeing it, and you're now dedicating yourself to a group like the Cure Cancer Foundation in the Edmonton area.
Well, it really started with Glennie Anderson was kicking around here with us as an ambassador. And when I started my alumni role, that's got to be 5 years ago now. I was 3 years into that alumni role, which was a great job. And I was approached by Darren Baumgartner, who was one of he was the director of the Cure Cancer Foundation. It was a newly formed foundation, just a group of solid business guys that, are pillars of the community that really were trying to give back. Darren approached me and asked me, do you think Glenn Anderson would come back and help with the cross cancer golf tournament? I said, well, of course he would. He's one of the, along with Cal Nichols, he was one of the guys that started that thing 35 years ago. Of course he will. He'd love to. So it didn't take long for Andy to get in a room with Natalie Minkler, was our Edmonton Oilers Community Foundation executive director, and Bob Nicholson and all the group were very supportive. Andy came on board, and I got involved in charities that, at a different level. I'd always been helping where I could, but I was helping to run these guys run these charity events, and significant events. Last year, the Glenn Anderson Day of Golf, which I think it was the 35th year, raised $1 million in one day. So to your point about fundraising, um, I'm the recipient, the very lucky recipient of a new cancer trial. I was number one in Alberta that Dr. Sandhu put me on, Dr. Chu and Dr. Sandhu. And I've been raising money for funds for research for trials for 5 years, helping our Toast of the Town event, Bryn, which you helped us when you were a big part of. Our byline is what we do today saves lives tomorrow. And, the ironic part or not, I came out of remission. The treatment and the technology and the funding has been so well. Within 2 months, I'm back in remission because I'm on a trial that's saving my life right now from the funds that have been raised through tournaments like the Glenn Anderson Day of Golf. I mean, Brent Sake he does $2 million. Our good friend Brent Sake, $2 million. Brian Anstice and myself, we do the Toast of the Town. We have the Bird Dogs group, which is a group of gentlemen that raises money for tons of money for prostate cancer. So that's how I got started. And once I got started, I realized that the people that I'm working with, the people that I'm volunteering with, are all just very special people. They're special human beings. They really care about making a difference, and they have pride and they have passion. And that fit me quite well because that was my motto for is the motto for the Oilers alumni department, pride and passion. So, I'm passionate about helping people that are on this journey. And as you guys both know, you're vested interest partners, just like me. We hold that red card. It's not a club you want to be a member of, but right. It motivates me. It inspires me every day to continue to help people. And that's how I really started, through the Oilers Community Foundation and the Cure Cancer Foundation.
Okay, so in 1999, the guy we know, Wayne Gretzky, decides he's going to retire. So it's probably about 3 or 4 days after his big Madison Square Garden finale. We all remember that. And he decides to come back to Edmonton to catch a playoff game. Well, I was asked by Bill Tawilli and Glenn Sather, will you look after Wayne Gretzky on that particular night? So I had to pick him up at an event in downtown Edmonton and bring him in a limousine to the arena. We tried to do it so discreetly, but we were talking about guys inside the Oilers organization. Your name came up, and he looked at me and he said, do you know that Barrie Stafford is the most decorated of all the Edmonton Oilers?
Now, it's funny you bring that up. I mean, it to me, once again, I had a great run. I mean, 38 years with an unbelievable organization, and through the dynasty years, and I came along at a really good time. And it seems like a different lifetime ago for me. Not that I'm not grateful, and some of the greatest things that ever happened to be in my life, besides getting married to my lovely bride, in the sports world is 5 Stanley Cup champions. I mean, I never played a game in the NHL. I never coached a game in the NHL. But I was on a lot of winning teams, and it's because of the winning. Glenn Sather in the dynasty years and all those great players that we were so lucky to work with. And, winning is the common thread to lifelong friendships, and especially at that level. I mean, championship teams at any level are special, but I don't want to sell myself short. I just feel very fortunate that I was part of those teams. I was a support staff member. I did whatever I could to support and do my job. And it was because of winning that we did Canada Cups. Holy smokes, I'm working with the best managers and coaches and players in the game. Three Canada Cups I was part of. And I see players and managers from those days, and we're still have that in common. I had a chance to work 2 Olympics. And that 02 Olympic team with Ryan Smith and Eric Brewer. Wayne, of course, ran the team. Kevin Lowe was on our team. Lanny McDonald. I mean, as an executive and management group, but that was pretty special. And so I'm just a real lucky guy, Bryn. I can't say enough about that. And never mind that. 28 years behind the bench, I had the best seat in the house for all those games. I mean, but then, I get a chance to, help Kevin Lowe as the president in our organization in the best building in the world. I just went through there the other day with Paul Coffey. He was helping some. It's a typical example of a guy like Paul Coffey. There's three of our close friends had one young guy had a disability and he was in a wheelchair. A friend of ours, a couple other friends were in wheelchairs. Paul says, I'm bringing him in the dressing room between periods, or like when the team went on the ice. I mean, I walked through that locker room again. I haven't been there lately because I'm not around, but it's just fascinating. And you guys have been in there and you've seen it. And because we had the support of a great owner and, he wanted the best in the world. And you know what? We all should be proud of that building because that is the best building in the world, bar none. And so, I'm very fortunate to have done that. And then I get a chance to, work with the best alumni in the NHL. Arguably we had the best alumni in the NHL. Look at the 5-6 guys we have in the Hall of Fame, including now Kevin Lowe. I mean, it's amazing. And yet there was no real formal structure to help promote that. And, Bob and Kevin asked me to do that job, and that was a dream job for me. So I was very fortunate. I had lots of different careers within the time there, and I've got nothing but good things to say about my time with the Oilers.
Barrie, you worked with the greatest player of all time, and you've worked with so many Hall of Famers. Was there a player in your many years where you looked at him, maybe in the early days of training camp or in the season, and you thought, I don't know if this guy is going to be that great, when in fact many years later, there they are, either in the Hall of Fame or their name is hanging from a banner?
Well, I will say this, not to put a different spin on your question. That's a good question. I at the time when we were, and I mean, I'm the same age as those guys. I was a little bit older, I guess, a couple years older, but I joined the team. We had the Oilers were the best team in the NHL at the time. It was very intimidating for a young guy like me. I played, for Claire Drake at university hockey, but I was, far from being an NHL hockey player. But I had a hockey player's mentality just because of the great coaching, the great teams, 3 championships under Claire Drake. Wow. I mean, I learned a lot through that. And then I carried that over. So, but the one thing I will say is that nobody ever expected, everybody knew Wayne Gretzky was the best player in the game. Even then, Mark was up and coming, and Mark was a great star. There's no doubt. Koff was, he could have been Norris Trophy. We're talking 83. So, I mean, that's a long time ago, but Yari Curry, nobody ever, other than Wayne, nobody ever thought about Hall of Fames and, scoring championships, except for Wayne. We all kind of thought that he was going to go down that road. But, I will say, though, that for all of us, even though it took a long time for Kevin to get in the Hall of Fame, he was one of those guys that nobody in the room would ever have thought that he wouldn't be in the Hall of Fame, because he was one of the leaders of our team, very subtly. But, they were all such good players. And I don't think anybody would have thought, other than Wayne, that, hey, these guys are going to be in the Hall of Fame, or these guys are going to be the greatest players that ever played. Talk about Glennie Anderson. Look at the records these guys have. Like, he's still the record books. Grant Fuhr. I mean, so Dave, I can't answer that because I didn't think that way, and I can't think of one player that probably stands out.
One of the great privileges for me working with the Edmonton Oilers is that the hub of activity was your equipment center, where you did all the equipment repairs and that kind of thing. The coffee pot was always on, and then there was the back hallway, that kind of thing. You really ran that place. Guys would be a little in awe of you because of, who you were at that point. But can you tell the story? I'll tell you what, tell us the story about the laces.
I have to set the record straight.
Okay, do it here.
I mean, I've heard guys telling me this bullshit story. It was in Mark's book a few months ago. And they said, "Oh, you're a cheap bastard." I said, first of all, I worked for Glenn Sather, and I would say that it wasn't about cheap. It's about being value conscious. I learned about, looking after dollars. And Glenn was always close to the dollar and very careful about budgeting. So, I had a reputation of being tight, but really I had, the boss was breathing down my neck. And back in those days, Glenn was the president, coach, general manager, and he's in the room every day. It's not like today. You don't see the president and the general manager once in a while. The coach is in the room, but so it was a different era. Anyway, Glenn set the tone for that. And he was just trying to get everybody to be responsible, really. Okay. So I will say that, he wasn't a cheap bastard. Okay. I will say that. He was just helping people to be, responsible and aware that, somebody has to pay for this stuff. So let's get to the laces. So now, Kevin, who was, one of our leaders, one of my closest friends on the team for years, we're hanging out, before the game. Every player's got a routine, right? So Kevin's routine was, he would put new laces in his skates every game, which is, who cares? I mean, laces were $3.20. I don't know what they were. I don't really give a shit, right? So he's putting new laces in his skates. Big deal. I'd be sitting beside him. We'd be having a coffee. I'd get up. He'd take the old laces out and chuck them towards the garbage can where the ping pong table was.
Perfectly
we were known to
laces.
have a ping pong table. Well, it wasn't that. He used them for one game. I don't really care. I'm not asking I'm not telling Wayne Gretzky nothing, but Wayne or Mark or these guys, you can't tape a new stick. Like, they can do what they want, right? But I'm not telling Kevin he can't put new laces in his skates. I don't really give a shit personally. So the fact is, he took the laces from his old skates and threw them at the garbage can. And every time I get up and walk by, I go, hit the garbage can. Just for fun. I'd pick them up, throw them in the garbage can. So this went on for about, 3 or 4 games. Every game he'd put new laces in. So finally I decided, the little red wrapper that holds the laces together, I took the little red wrapper out of the garbage can. I took the used laces that he threw on the floor out of the garbage can. I wrapped them up really tight, put the little label back on, and then put them in his stall. So he comes in the next game and he goes, "Wow, that's really nice. Barrie put the laces in my stall. That's nice of him." So I got away with that for about 2 games.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, about the 3rd game, maybe it was the 2nd game, son of a bitch, I get this scream out of Kevin Lowe, "You bastard, you cheap son of a gun." And then Coffee would get into it. And then Huddy would get into it. "You cheap." And so we laughed our asses off. But they said, what happened was about later in that year, we're in the conference final in the old Chicago Stadium. Unbelievable, as you guys know. I mean, it's hard to describe that old rink, but it's warm up and you can hear the fans just buzzing. And about 10 minutes before warm up, it's very quiet in the room. It's a really nice time. The guys are just bantering and they're very loose. And so I got a coffee. I'm wandering around the dressing room, kind of got nothing to do. I'm just kind of hanging out with the boys, hanging out for the warm up. And little did I know that someone had planted a brand new lace in the garbage can. So I'm walking by and I see this brand new lace. I look down, minding my own business, not knowing that everybody's kind of looking at me. I picked this lace out of the garbage can and I'm thinking, that's a goddamn brand new lace. So I start picking the lace out. I pick it out. I'm tugging on something. I pull it up. There's a sign. I don't know about obscenities on your show here, but the sign said,
we can work
"Fuck
around
you.
that.
Fuck you, chicken legs." And the whole place just went nuts. And that's a Stanley Cup. That's a conference final game with the Edmonton Oilers. And everybody was laughing and joking. And I was the brunt of the joke. But and that story lived on. That's a legend. Mark Messie's writing about that in his book. He got it a bit mixed up though, but it's still, that's my story. Right. That's the true story.
You've cleared it up, baby.
Barrie, I worked with a dear friend of yours and mine and a lot of us in the industry, Dwayne Mandrusiak. He was the equipment manager, your counterpart for, so many years at the Edmonton Eskimos. And I learned more from the equipment room and Dwayne in particular about how to interact with players, coaches, and anybody else in that world. What is it about the role of the equipment manager in terms of setting a tone for that organization and in that room?
You know,
He's gonna play it down.
it
You
is
know that.
funny.
No, I know he's going to play it down. I know.
It is funny that you hear that from a lot of people that the training room or the equipment room is the heartbeat of the operation, and it's kind of funny because that's a place where the players gather a lot. I mean, there were, of course, we do the skates and sharpening and repairs and all those kind of things, but it's in the back, it's out of the way, it's a place for people to come down and have a coffee, usually right before the game, early on a game day, or even after practice. And I think I would have to credit the characteristics that I learned and the kind of personality that I have. I'd have to credit a lot to Glenn Sather for that, in a way where he really sort of set the tone about professionalism and about the traits of character and all those kind of things, and as well as those other young players like Mark. I mean, the other thing that made the Oilers great, that you guys may know and understand because you've had the chance to be around the team a long time, is that the quality of the people, like Mark Messier, Kevin Lowe, Glenn Anderson, Grant Fuhr's parents, Curry's parents couldn't come around, but their parents were always there. Their dads, their moms were in the stands. Their dads were in the room having a coffee with us. These guys were quality families, quality people. And they honestly cared about people. And so, I mean, I learned from them. I watched Walter Gretzky all the time. I would encourage the dads to come into the locker room, have a coffee. They were so proud to be in Edmonton, come down in the locker room. So, I kind of learned that side of it mainly from Glenn, I suppose. Peter Miller before me, my training partner, was very good that way. We just had a really open, welcoming atmosphere in that room, and players would gravitate to that. Like I've often said, the training staff, the medical trainer, the equipment managers are like the Red Cross. We're neutral, man. Like I could walk in any locker room in the NHL, and the trainers or the coaches or managers wouldn't even bat an eye, because respectfully, not walking in at a bad time or something, but it was just something that we and the players gravitated to that, because I was, they could talk to us if they're having problems with the coaches, if they're having problems at home, if they're having problems with teammates, and then years later, as we started to get a little bit older, the players were younger. They would come to us and ask our advice, and we had a lot to offer because we've been through a lot of situations with great people to help us to be able to help them, sort of thing.
Hey, before we wrap this thing up, and there's one thing I got to say. Thanks for all the stories. Thanks for telling us about how you handled your career, but also how you handled cancer right out of the gate. There's always a huge level of positivity around you. You always send out a positive message, and I know you're approached all the time. I know you are. We're always happy to talk to people who've gone through what we've gone through, to see if maybe we can give some people something to aspire to. Maybe they'll ask us how we've handled that, and we can tell them how we've done that.
How do you handle that?
Well, I tell you, it's very simple for me. I've been helping young kids in lots of different groups for years. And I created a keynote called Winning in the Game of Life. And it was before I was diagnosed, but I've twisted it around a little bit. And the concept is based on three main principles. Number one, choices. The choices you make you. Just think about that. It's a very simple principle. The second is adversity doesn't define who you are, but how you respond is going to define. And that can relate to sports, that can relate to life, and it can relate to cancer patients. Hey, life is, like Rocky says, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. Life is a bitch, man. It can be tough. And somebody in your life is going to die, and somebody in your life is going to be in a terrible car accident, and somebody in your life close to you is going to be diagnosed with cancer. It's going to happen. It's not if. How are you going to respond? You have the ability to choose. You understand that there is no easy way. Expect the unexpected. And the most important part that I've learned, and I know you guys have, I know it's in your heart, is you need to learn not to take things for granted. My good Lord. The best way to say it is you need to learn to have an attitude of gratitude. You need to be grateful for all the good things in your life and not bitching and complaining about the dumbest things, because until you're in a situation where you're looking your mortality eyeball to eyeball, or you have a loved one that's in a hospital bed, all of a sudden you get a slap on the side of the head. You don't need tragedy in your life to learn to live gratitude, to be grateful. As Tim McGraw says, just be humble and kind. We need more of that in this world. I would encourage anybody at any time, and thank you for mentioning the Cure Cancer Foundation. And I will say that we've partnered with the Alberta Cancer Foundation in Edmonton. I mean, this isn't a business. It's not a business advertisement. But what I'm suggesting is, if anybody wants to help, and there's so many great people in Edmonton and across this great country, but and it doesn't matter what cancer. The Cure Cancer Foundation has a website. We have great, I mean great events that the money is going directly to the researchers and doctors. The Alberta Cancer Foundation raises $30 million a year. We're partnering with them. They've approached us. You can go on the Alberta Cancer Foundation website. 63 people every day in Alberta. I mean, this is a scary statistic. Are diagnosed with cancer. We lose over 7,000 people die of cancer every year in Edmonton, in Alberta. So, there's ways to help. There's ways to volunteer. There's ways to donate. And so, learn about the importance of living an attitude of gratitude, and anybody can help at any time. You just have to reach out.
But anyway, Staffy, time to say thank you very much. This is always great.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, you guys, and good luck with the podcast. I was so happy that you asked me to join, and congratulations for this. And I love the name. Anything I can do to help, please call.
You got it.
Thanks so much, Barrie. That was wonderful. That's it for today. We thank you for being with us as we talk sports and cancer on our podcast. We really hope the stories shared today will help make your day better, and perhaps to inspire you to recognize so many have gone through so much. And there's positive stuff happening all the time on the Beat Cancer front.
Now, if you have a comment on today's podcast or a suggestion of somebody you'd like us to track down, then send us an email. It's my email address. It's Bryn, B-R-Y-N, at road55.ca. You can also check out our Twitter feed. The handle is @CancerInTheRoom. Or you can also check out our website, which is www.cancerintheroom.ca. On behalf of Dave Jamieson, I'm Bryn Griffiths, and thanks for joining us.